You're listening to How to Drink Less, and I'm your host, Adriana Cloud. Whether your goal is to cut back, take a break, or say goodbye to alcohol for good, this podcast will help you stop drinking on autopilot, learn how to manage cravings, and feel fully in control around alcohol. It's easier than you think. Listen on to find out how. Hi everyone, welcome back to How to Drink Less. If you're listening with kids around, it might be a good time to put earbuds in if you're trying to protect underage ears, because today we are going to be talking about alcohol and sex. For many people, alcohol is a prerequisite for sex. They feel they cannot get naked in front of another person unless they've had a couple of drinks to loosen up and feel less self-conscious. It's a lot easier to get in the mood after a couple of glasses of wine, one of my clients said to me recently. And another one told me that she felt more confident and sexy when she drank because otherwise she felt awkward and self-conscious. Those were her words. And if that's been your pattern for a couple of years or a couple of decades, if you're used to mostly having sex when you are a little buzzed or a lot buzzed, then you might wonder, how on earth could you possibly have sex sober? That's what we're here to talk about today. First of all, please know that you're not alone. I promise you, this is more common than you might realize. So there's nothing wrong with you if the idea of having sex completely sober makes a shiver run down your spine because you can't possibly imagine how you would do that. But let's just agree that when you drink to get in the mood for sex or to get comfortable enough for sex, the alcohol is just a means to an end. You're not drinking to get drunk. You're drinking because of what alcohol gives you. It lowers your inhibitions. It makes you feel more confident. It helps you to stop overthinking and to relax, and so on. These are the perceived benefits of alcohol when it comes to sex. But drinking to relieve awkwardness or anxiety temporarily is not the same thing as actually making you feel more at ease or improving the experience for you or for your partner. And this is really important to recognize. Feeling less self-conscious is not the same thing as feeling more connected to the person next to you. You're not becoming more confident when you drink. You just care less about the other person's opinion of you, and you care less about the consequences of your actions. And you don't suddenly love your naked body more. You have just managed to drown out the voice of the inner critic temporarily. This distinction matters because over time, the more you outsource your confidence and relaxation to alcohol, the more awkward you will feel without it. You're teaching your brain that alcohol is required for sex, and you're not practicing dealing with the discomfort on your own. And if you keep doing that, it's never going to get easier to have sex sober. Let's talk a little bit about what alcohol actually does when it comes to sex. It does three main things. It lowers your inhibitions, it numbs anxiety, and it reduces awareness. And this is what that looks like in practice. First of all, alcohol lowers your inhibitions. It affects the part of your brain responsible for decision-making, judgment, and restraint, which means you're more likely to say things you wouldn't normally say. You might act in a way that you wouldn't normally if you were sober, and you might also stop second-guessing yourself or being self-critical. This all can feel like confidence because you're no longer holding yourself back. The inner critic is quiet and there is no barrier to your words or to your actions. But you're not actually becoming more confident. You're just removing the brakes. Confidence is intentional and deliberate, while operating with lowered inhibitions means you're not fully in control. It's a slippery slope between appearing more confident and saying or doing something that you might end up regretting. Things can quickly start to go wrong because lowered inhibitions don't just mean you're less critical of your body. They mean you're more likely to engage in risky or unsafe sex. You might say yes to things you don't actually want to do, or you might even end up pressuring your partner to do things that they don't really want to do. because the more rational part of your brain goes offline when you drink. The second thing alcohol does is it numbs feelings like anxiety and awkwardness. But you don't actually feel better. You're just numbing everything, so you feel less overall. Alcohol is a depressant. It sedates your nervous system, which can mimic relaxation and give you a temporary feeling of relief. You might notice your thoughts stop racing, your breathing slows down, and so on. But really, you've just turned down the volume on everything, on your thoughts as well as your feelings and physical sensations. The anxiety is still actually there, you've just put a filter on it. And the thing to remember is that you can't selectively numb only certain feelings. When you numb the bad, you numb the good too. So you're also numbing things like excitement, anticipation, emotional connection, joy, and so on. And finally, alcohol reduces awareness of your surroundings, of yourself, and of your partner. This means alcohol disconnects you from your physical experience, your emotional experience, and from your partner's cues and their body language. Alcohol literally numbs your senses. So you're less tuned into what your partner's touch feels like, and you're less aware of subtle sensations. You're also less tuned into your partner and their experience. The end result is that, in your attempt to be less in your head, you end up being less in your body. And for sex, that's a big deal. The very thing that makes sex feel good, being present in your body, is the thing that alcohol takes away from you. I should also mention that alcohol can sometimes lead to performance issues in the moment, like challenges with arousal, difficulty maintaining an erection, delayed or impaired climax, and so on. These are the short-term risks, and in the long term, heavy drinking can lead to lower libido, ongoing erectile dysfunction, and lower testosterone levels and sperm count. And related to that last point, even moderate drinking affects fertility in a number of ways. So if you're having sex with the goal of conception, this is something to keep in mind. So where does that leave us? Given the picture I've just painted, it will not surprise you to hear me say that sober sex is so much better. First of all, when you have sex sober, you're really present for what's happening. Instead of just going through the motions, you're actually in your body. You're feeling every small sensation and every big sensation. You're feeling the nuances, the buildup, the changes in your own body and in your partner's body. Everything is more immediate and more intense. When you engage in intimacy sober, it also creates a stronger physical and emotional connection between you and your partner because you're more attuned to their facial expressions, how their body is responding to your touch. You're really noticing what's happening for them and how they're feeling in that moment. And that makes you a better lover, honestly. And if you can be at ease in your own body when you're sober, that's real comfort and real confidence, not borrowed confidence that runs out the moment you sober up. It's the confidence that comes from knowing you're making an intentional choice to be intimate with someone versus numbing your way into being okay with that. Sober sex also builds your self-trust and helps you feel more connected to yourself. You notice what actually feels good versus what doesn't. And when you're clear-headed, you trust yourself about saying yes and about saying no. And that changes everything because you're practicing honoring your own desires and your own needs. And of course, when you have sex sober, you remember everything the next day, rather than sifting through vague memories trying to piece together what happened or how you ended up in a particular situation. Okay, you might be thinking, this all sounds great, but how do I get over the awkwardness of it all? I've got you. First of all, again, let's normalize the awkwardness. We have come a long way in recent years to democratize sex and to normalize conversations around sex and pleasure and kinks, but collectively, we are still operating within the context of long-standing taboos around sex and intimacy. So it's completely normal If you have some slight anxieties or awkwardness when you think about sex in general, and sober sex in particular, doesn't mean there's anything wrong with you. So if you notice that that's where your thoughts go, try not to slip into self-judgment. Remind yourself that this is normal, and that's just societal conditioning that you have inherited. Most people have some version of that. And on that point, remind yourself that your partner probably has some bit of that as well. They probably have their own anxieties and their own hang-ups about their body and about the sexual act itself. But rather than making this a reason to withdraw, you might consider this an opportunity to form a deeper bond with them because you're both sharing a very human experience. The fact is, you don't need alcohol to feel confident or desirable. You just need more practice feeling that way while you're sober and fully present. You need more practice feeling that way deliberately, by yourself, without relying on alcohol to get you there. And like anything else, you'll get better with practice. The best thing you can do is slow yourself down and keep noticing what's happening in your body and where your thoughts go. Ask yourself, is there something you're worried about in this very moment? Where are your thoughts drawn to? And then ask yourself, what else can you notice here? This is a great question for expanding your perspective, asking yourself what else you are aware of. I really love that question because rather than arguing with however you're feeling, you are simply widening the lens to notice more. And in that process, you're giving yourself an opportunity to refocus. And definitely pay attention to what's happening in your body. Notice how your breath is. Notice the physical sensations you're experiencing, and practice noticing how they change if you keep observing them. You might consider sharing with your partner what you're experiencing, because open communication builds intimacy. And as with everything new, remind yourself that it might feel awkward at first. If you're used to having sex when you're buzzed and now suddenly you're doing it sober, it might feel like someone has turned up the volume on the background music and now you're suddenly aware of every single note. It's perfectly normal. You have removed the filter, and without that filter, you're feeling everything more clearly. But that awkward phase is not a problem. It's the stepping stone to a much better sex life. Because better sex doesn't come from numbing, it comes from being more present. So go forth and have some delicious sober sex and see how that feels. And if this episode has helped reinforce for you that you're ready to be done with alcohol, I can help you with that. I'm teaching a free class called Never Want Alcohol Again, where I will walk you through exactly how to break the association between alcohol and sex, alcohol and relaxation, alcohol and having fun, and so on. And I will show you what you need to do to feel comfortable in your own skin, regardless of what's in your glass. The link to sign up for the class is in the show notes, so go and find a slot that works for you, and I'll see you there. And if this episode struck a chord, consider sharing it with your partner. It might open the door to a deeper conversation about intimacy and connection in and outside of the bedroom. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you all next week. If you're looking for practical advice for how to say no to alcohol and say yes to yourself, you will want to get on my email list. Sign up to receive my free guide with 7 steps to kickstart your sobriety. The link is in the show notes, so go and grab it now, and I'll see you soon in your inbox.